Tom Curran's Patriots Talk podcast is presented by FanDuel Sportsbook. Make every moment more.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome into Tom Curran's Patriots Talk podcast. We got a great one, really great and special one. Phil's going to be in out of the chutes to talk about why the Patriots can, with a straight face, walk into Dallas and think about winning this football game, how they're going to fix their downfield passing game, and then second half, special treat, Keegan Bradley. Just like you, he's an unbelievably avid Patriots fan. I met him at training camp. He and I talked for 20 minutes, and he goes in depth on the roster with me up there. I'm like, I got to get this guy on. So with the Patriots at 1-2, a chance to go into Dallas and get to 2-2, and the Ryder Cup starting out, it was an absolute layup to have on one of the most fascinating golfers in United States golf, and a guy who's been kind of, well, a conversation point relative to this Ryder Cup. All right, everybody, love this matchup. We'll bring Phil in just a second, but when you look at it, the Patriots' first two games, which were losses, if you contort it and look at it through a certain lens, and maybe I'm a whack job right now, maybe I'm a little bit of an apologist, maybe I'm hoping to see something more impressive in some ways than the Dallas Cowboys' 2 wins. Giants and Jets, Eagles and Dolphins, strength of competition. Now, Patriots win over the Jets wasn't too impressive, but it was more impressive than a loss to Arizona. So we're looking at a game in which I think the Patriots can go down there with a straight face to Dallas and say, we can beat this team if we don't riddle our own foot with bullet holes, and if we start to figure some things out offensively. Big part of that would be hitting some downfield throws. Mac Jones talked about the downfield throws, of which the Patriots are 0 for 10 over the last 2 games on throws of 20 or more. Mac?
Oh, yeah, I love chunk plays. I mean, my whole career I've kind of thrived off those, play action and normal chunk plays. So just trying to keep doing them. You got to keep the hook in the water, I guess they say. So you got to have the bait out there and continue to fish, you know. So I think we'll hit them. We're working on it. I've looked at other teams in the league and how they do it and kind of gotten a really good idea. You know, how can I improve on it? How can we improve on it as a team? The offensive line's doing good, protecting. So we definitely need to hit them, and I'm looking forward to just growing in that area.
How do you get You're a fisher?
Not really. I mean, you're not going to catch anything if you don't keep throwing them, you know what I'm saying?
There he is, Phil Perry, beautifully lit in his ring light. Wow, you look... Wow.
You like the turtleneck today? It's sort of I don't know if is that a turtleneck? I don't know what you call this.
No, that's a 3/4 zip.
Yeah, it's a quarter zip. It's just up a little high, I guess.
Yeah, that's okay. That's all right. I like it.
Appreciate you.
It's autumnal, which also means fall. And what I'd like to see is some of the Patriots' long throws down the field fall into the hands of their receivers. And Mac Jones alluded to that as well. How close are they? And is there any way to get teams to stop saying, you can't do it?
The only way you can get teams to stop saying that is to actually do it. And it does feel like, Tom, that's what teams are saying. There are only 3 quarterbacks in the league who have more attempts against single high safety coverage. So when you play one high safety, you're telling the opposing quarterback, hey, man, you got your one-on-ones on the outside. Have at them. We just don't think you can beat us that way, and especially on third down. Mac Jones has more attempts against cover 1, so that's a single high safety, man-to-man defense underneath, more reps against cover 1 than any quarterback in the league on third down. So teams are daring Mac Jones to beat them on the outside. Until they do it, they're going to keep seeing it.
And that's what's interesting is as you're watching the games at home, I'm in our studio in Needham, and I'm seeing the same thing you are. It's 3rd and 3, and all of a sudden Mac's in a 5-step drop, and his shoulders are tilting, and you're like, he's going to throw it like 30 yards downfield on 3rd and 3. And as your initial reaction might be, mine is the same. Oh, why so far? That's why. That's where the coverage is telling you to go. So you're letting the defense dictate to you as an offense. Okay, you want us to go there? My rules are I have to go there. So it's really interesting. As an offense, you want to be able to dictate to the defense. Defenses are dictating to the Patriots. Yeah, sorry, man, you got to throw it to your guy, Devontae Parker, who you kind of like but don't love, but you want to make him feel good. So you gave him a little bump, but it's not really a bump. But go ahead, throw it to him. See how much you like him now.
It's unbelievable, isn't it? Because they are, it's not just that this is still a part of their offense, even though it hasn't been successful. This is a significant part of their offense. Again, because the defense is telling you to go there. But Mac Jones, Tom, has more deep attempts than any quarterback in football. He's got 18 through 3 games. So that leads the league. He's also last in the league, though, in yards per attempt on those attempts. 2.9 yards on passes that travel 20 yards down the field. It is absolutely meager in terms of the output. So you can't keep up with it. You have to be able to hit on some of those. Bill Belichick acknowledged it this week. Bill O'Brien, Mac Jones, they're going to keep trying. But to me, Tom, there's just not that many answers in terms of how you improve it, right? The personnel is not going to improve all that much over the course of the year, unless maybe they play Pop Douglas a little more. The offensive line, to me, is really the one area where you could get better, protect Mac Jones more, then maybe those deep shots are of better quality and it yields better production.
Folks, I did a tremendous job the other day enumerating the aggressiveness of Mac Jones. Pardon me. Here's some numbers just to validate what we're talking about so that your eyes don't betray you. Mac's aggressiveness percentage, according to Next Gen Stats, is 16%. Excuse me. That's 9th in the league. Air yards on attempts is 8.6. That's 10th highest. Air yards on completions, 4.6. That's 29th. Okay, so when he completes it, it's for 5 or less. He has the greatest differential in the league, which is 4 when comparing air yards on attempts and air yards on completions. So he just keeps shooting from outside and people keep saying clang. So they throw long, they don't hit him, like almost never. 0 for 10, as I mentioned to you, over the last 2 games on 20-yard plus throws. Evan Lazar, I'll credit him because he found it, but anybody could find it. But Evan found it and I stole it. Mac is 10th in third down air yards per attempt, 9.7. He's seeing man, as Phil pointed out, on 47.2% of third downs. Pressured on 27% of attempts overall. Blitzed 36, hurried 20. So that just validates what we're talking about, Phil, with teams say there's every sport, whether it's baseball and somebody throwing you a fastball down the middle and saying you can't catch it, whether it's basketball and somebody looking at a 3-point shooter and say, have fun, you aren't hitting it, with the Patriots trying to throw downfield.
The other option, Tom, would be, if you're trying to get more explosive, is try to create some chunk plays that aren't necessarily deep bombs down the field because you don't have the personnel, because of whatever the situation may be. You feel like your chemistry is not right, you can't hit on those. Well, what you can do is try to generate some catch and run plays that get you 20 yards or more, but they've been last in the league as far as doing that as well. They're 32nd in football in offensive plays of 20 yards or more. They only have 3 in 3 games. So I don't know how you do that. That's maybe more of a Bill O'Brien, scheme it up, design something that's going to catch the defense sleeping, a little bit like the Pharaoh Brown 58-yard touchdown. But how often can you depend on that? That's almost like a trick play. So it feels like their options are limited. They need to get healthy up front first. I think that would help.
And this is where the West Coast offense proliferation is so helpful, which is basically, and it's not the West Coast now, it's more the Shanahan offense, but the same premise exists. You find fast guys who can run crossers and run away from the defense the same way Jerry Rice and John Taylor did it, is the same way that Deebo Samuel does it. They're crossers. They're underneath fast crossers. And the Patriots used to have guys doing that who were very good at it, and they don't now. It's the same way they don't have a third down back, which I'm going to segue to briefly. Zeke Elliott and Ramondre Stevenson had a good week on the ground. I would imagine that's going to continue as the offensive line continues to improve. But I look at this offense and I look at the lack of a bug, the lack of a water bug third down player, and kind of in the backfield as well. Look, Julian Edelman and Amendola might have been your slot and third down receivers who could make people miss after the kick, but you still had Jimmy White in the backfield. Now you don't really have a true slot because you're mad at DeMario Douglas or you think he's just a little kid and you can't put him out there. And you don't use Ty Montgomery as your third down water bug, even though he's not even as good a water bug as those other guys. So it's like they've evacuated the notion that they need quickness. True elite quickness. Phil.
Boy, and that's a tough combination when you look at their overall speed as an offense too. So you're not quick or fast at this point. Demario Douglas really is the guy who I think gives you both of those things. And so again, for me, 17 offensive snaps against a really good defense isn't enough if that guy's arguably your most explosive player. How about Ramondre Stevenson too, though, Tom? I mean, he was somebody who was relied upon a lot as a receiver last year, 80 plus targets. And then this past week, it might be an aberration. It's a small sample, but he has one go off his hands in the rain. And then he has another basically, looks like it almost clangs off his face mask because his head's not around in time to see the football coming his way. Is that someone they should be leaning on more in the pass game to provide just a little more reliability? Because we're talking about the deep pass game not necessarily being there. The underneath stuff could use a little bit more confidence probably as well.
Yeah, and I would 1,000,000% not go away from that. He had 69 catches on those 80 odd attempts. His yards per catch was like 4. Well, it's not good, but that's because the team stunk. But I would not go away from Ramondre Stevenson as a pass catcher. And if you want to make Zeke your first and second down back and Ramondre your first, second, and third down back and just keep playing with those guys, who cares? I don't care if they both run for 750 yards and you get 1,500 yards out of your two backs. Who cares? Now, Ramondre might, because he might think it impacts his future earnings. I think he's a top 10 back, and I have a litany of stats that I shared yesterday with our early edition email to prove it, because we had conversation of him being just jaggy. And I'm like, he's not jaggy, and he's not just good. He's closer to elite in terms of yards after catch, in terms of yards after contact, broken tackles, and yards per carry. He doesn't lose yards on you. So I think he's closer to top 5. He's not Josh Jacobs, Nick Chubb, or Christian McCaffrey, but he's in that next tier of, no, shit, we got to deal with this guy. So
are you worried about him at all as a runner?
No,
because last year, just as an example, to give you one number to back up what you're saying, he was 9th in the NFL last year in terms of yards after contact per rushing attempt, almost 3.5. This year so far, 3 weeks, small sample, 42nd in the NFL, 1.8 yards after contact per attempt. And he acknowledged yesterday in a press conference with us that he would like to be breaking more tackles. And I asked him, why has that been lacking for you? He said, well, he got a little defensive. He said, I don't think it's been lacking. Okay, well, why would you like to do more? Well, I just feel like there are tackles that I should be breaking that I haven't broken yet. So maybe that's coming. Maybe he's on the precipice of being able to do some of that stuff, but they need it, Tom, because they need as much playmaking ability as they can get offensively here. And he's arguably their best playmaker on that side of the ball. And he just hasn't looked the same through 3 weeks just yet.
Well, I think it's such a reactionary position where it's so much feel and you don't want to think. As with any really athletic, the more you think, the more paralyzed you get. And with the blocking schemes in front of, not schemes, but the blocking personnel, Sidiso and Antonio Mafi, the fact that Onwenu, Strange, and Brown were not there in week 2, you don't know what you're running up into. And you want to do the best you can, but you want to be, okay, I'm not sure if, it's there. Oh, shit, I was too late. Oh, well. So I think that will come. Like when you look at, was it Philly or Miami where he had the double pirouette down the field? I mean, he's still got all the skills that you need. He's an amazingly inventive runner. He's got great jump cut ability. He's a good player. I'm not concerned. I think it's just a rhythm, really very much a rhythm thing.
Well, and it's an interesting word to use, because as your rhythm may be broken in some ways because you have this other back who's getting a decent number of carries. And he was asked if he, just needs to get into that flow with more work. And what he said yesterday here is, I think it's safe to say that for any running back, getting those reps under your belt in games, getting behind that offensive line, seeing how the defense is moving around and just wearing that defense down. I think those reps back to back and getting warm is a big deal. He did tell me after the game on Sunday that if he and Ezekiel Elliott are splitting carries, that's okay with him. And they're both going to be hard on defenses. But this is an idea that runs a little bit counter to that. It's, hey, work is good for a running back, which I think we all would acknowledge. And so it'll be fascinating for me to see how Bill O'Brien uses those guys in sort of how he tries to get them to complement one another, because I think they both probably work better with the more work that they get.
Especially this week when the Patriots are going to Dallas and Zeke will be hungry for the ball, and the Patriots might look at this as an opportunity to feed a very highly motivated running back. I mean, I'd tap into his emotion as a violent runner. So I can't imagine Zeke's going to get the ball 4 times and Ramondre's going to get it 18. So looking at this matchup, though, Phil, I don't think the disparity between the two teams, especially in terms of results. I know they don't have a CeeDee Lamb. I know they don't have a Michael Parsons. And they really don't have a Dak. They got a Mac. Again, those two are not so disparate either. But be that as it may, I don't see in the terms of the results through 3 weeks a huge gap.
Yeah, it's interesting. You know, that Cardinals game, I think, skewed everything to some degree, right? And I do think the Cowboys offense performed really well against the Jets. You know, they were very efficient when you look at some of the numbers and how that game played out. And they've changed offensively, Tom. I mean, Jerry Jones, I was listening to Dallas radio earlier this week, and Jerry Jones is doing his weekly spot there. He's very open about the fact that they're basically asking Dak Prescott not to push the ball down the field as often as he's used to in order to reduce some of the turnovers. We know he had an absolutely astronomical figure in terms of interceptions last year. He has just one so far this season, but they've asked him to be a little bit more of a dink and dunk Dak as opposed to an explosive play Dak. And so, you know, maybe that plays into the Patriots defense a little bit. The other thing is, Tom, they may have to go more dink and dunk because they could be without 3 of their best offensive linemen. Tyron Smith, Tyler Biadasz, who's their center, and Zach Martin, one of the best guards in football. All missed last week, all missed practice Wednesday this week. So we'll see if they're able to play on Sunday. That would be a big deal if they can't. Yeah.
And when we look at results against the Arizona Cardinals and in a vacuum say, same old Cowboys, Mike McCarthy, it's Dak, they can't do. You have to look at the context. The same way you have to look at the context of the Patriots' early season results and what they should have done, could have done, and actually did. Snap into action this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is so easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/NSBO and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. 21 plus and present in Mass. Hope is here. First online real money wager only. $10 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com, gamblinghelpline.ma.org, or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support. Play it smart from the start. GameSenseMA.com or call 1-800-GAM-1234. Phil, you're a Keegan Bradley fan, right?
Oh, yeah. Love it. I've tried to replicate his stance over the ball many, 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 many times. And you're going to be shocked to hear this, but it doesn't work for me.
The stance you can do, the swing, maybe not.
Fair.
Well, we're going to bring in Keegan, and he is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. I could not be more excited to have Keegan Bradley with us today. Any day, really. We met at training camp, right?
That's right.
Had a tremendous conversation, and I said, wow, he's kind of an addict when it comes to the Patriots. What's the Patriots fan experience like right now, Keegan? Post Brady, 3 years into Mac.
Well, I still am as passionate, and in a weird way, it's kind of fun to root for a team that before the season would start with Brady. You go, it's basically Super Bowl or bust.
Yep.
Now it's sort of like I just want to see him do well and win games. But I still, when I watch the Patriots and they're down, I still have that feeling in the back of my head, like when Brady was here, they're going to figure out a way to win this game. Like there's even when they're way down, I still feel like a ball's going to be tipped. They're going to pit, something's going to happen, and it's so bizarre to see them not win these games. If I'm being honest, like
Yeah.
I feel like this team is in every single game, and the games that they won 95% of the time, they don't win them anymore, which is a bummer. I was at the Eagles game game week 1. And I'm thinking like this is an old Patriots win here. It's coming. Like I can feel it, and I can feel the crowd. And then to see that when he didn't get his 2 feet down, it's like, oh man, that's kind of a bummer. That would have been so fun.
Yeah, and everything is so flipped because all those tiny little margins that they used to win on, they seem to be the ones victimized. Whether it's like that Cincinnati game last year where they kind of had no business being in it, but they're in it, and then they fumble. Or the opener last year, I think there was a fumble against Miami, or the 2 feet, or the Xavier Howard pick.
Even the Cam Newton years, I think it was a game against Buffalo. Like they're going down to win the game, and it was like, did he fumble that? That Patriots, that never happens, So it's certainly a strange when the game ends. Sometimes I'm standing there watching the TV, like that didn't happen. I don't think there's no way. Normally I'm watching the TV like, I can't believe that happened. I can't believe how did they win that game? They should have won that game. But I get the sense that I feel like there's a core now. As last year, I didn't feel like I feel with Gonzalez, Mac, and there seems Judon, there seems to be this there always was a group of Patriots. And I don't know, I feel like they're starting to get that.
All right. So I'm going to draw a parallel that you are probably gonna. I didn't even think of this. You got to learn to win. It's in their DNA. It's the same helmets. It's the same uniforms, but it's not in this group's DNA to figure out a way to win. Did you experience the same thing throughout your golf career, especially when you get to the PGA Tour? You got to figure out a way to win. You can shoot a 63. But how are you gonna make sure your 72 still remains a 68?
Right. I mean, early in my career, I won 3 times really quick, including a major. And then I went through a stretch of playing terrible, honestly. And I had to sort of readjust sort of what I was doing and adjust to getting back to where I wanted to be. And it took a totally different way of doing it. I couldn't go, okay, this is what I did in the beginning of my career, and now I'm going to do that now. I went down that road. I looked at old videos of my swing. I looked at this is how I practice. And you just can't do it. It's just this. You got to figure out a whole new way of becoming better, improving every day, getting on the golf course, and maybe doing things differently than what you did. And I think with the Patriots, the NFL is so different now. I think that the Patriots back in the day, they were tough and they hit you, and now it's fast wide receivers. It's throw the ball down the field. The fair catching of the kicks is ridiculous. I hate it. And it's just like, the Patriots always seem to, their special teams was even better than everybody else. And it just seems like it's a totally different game now. And
as you say that, you see Bill Belichick, who came up obviously in the 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, 2010s, and he was a dominant coach, and he had dominant players, the greatest defensive player, of all time, and also the greatest offensive player of all time, maybe the greatest player of all time in Brady and Lawrence Taylor. And now it's kind of used as a cudgel against him that, no Brady, you can't do it anymore. And really, when you look at 2010 on, in my estimation, that was very much Brady. It was a Brady-driven decade. Personnel-wise, they weren't the same in many ways. He, because of his excellence, was able to really cover up a lot of the decisions and personnel decisions the team made. Neither here nor there. But when it comes to Bill, I don't want you to say he needs to go. Or how hard is it as a fan to hear the speculation about somebody who brought so much pleasure?
I think it's brutal. I think it's brutal. I listen to Felger and Maz every day, and I can't believe the calls that come in on Belichick. I want to shake these people and be like, don't you remember? Don't you remember the 20 years? And I mean, I think this team is decent. I look at the team. And I think, God, they could just get one wide receiver. I think they're one of the best teams in the AFC. I really think I see this Devontae Adams as people are talking about trading him, and the Patriots aren't listed on the teams, and it bums me out. But when I watched his press conference after the Dolphins game, he seemed genuinely shocked to have lost that game. I think that they really thought they were going to win that game, and I think he thinks this is a good team, and I think he's sort of surprised. But it's so hard for me because I say this about the Patriots all the time. The Super Bowls were great, but what they gave me over those years with my family it's my happiest memories of with my dad. I grew up in Vermont. I watched them win their first Super Bowl in my basement with my dad, and we're high-fiving, and it was just the best. And then, I watched a couple with my dad, and then midway through the dynasty, I went to 2 Super Bowls with my wife's from New England too. We went to 2. I went to the Butler interception and the 28-3. And the moments we're hugging each other together. And then the last Super Bowl, I was holding my son watching the last one. So my whole life, I base my memories off of Patriot moments. And I would love to see Belichick. I would just love to see this team, it'd be so cool to see them post Brady do well. But I really hope that they do. It's frustrating to watch sometimes. So I don't really know how this team's going to go.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, I have a career that I wouldn't have if I had been born in Cleveland and dropped in there and started covering the Browns in 97 as opposed to the Patriots. I had the chance to sit front row to watch basically the equivalent of Lombardi's Packers and Walsh's 49ers all encompassed in 1-2 decade stretch. Those kids are named Brewski. There's, dogs are named Brewski. Kids are named Brady.
Yeah.
It's just decorated the entire, as you said, it weaves through your family.
Yeah.
But as you watch the team too, and you're into 2023 and you see the margins that they lose on where the decisions made, like for instance, it's a Juju Smith-Schuster for Jacoby Myers. You're like, well, Bill, it's right there in front of you. I mean, you got a good player who's undrafted. He's productive. He loves the quarterback. He likes being here. Why would you move on from him? So those are the things that they don't chisel away at the memories, but you covet the chance for more memories, I guess. I'm kind of talking as a fan here, but so it is a weird kind of dichotomy, right?
It's such a weird time in the Patriots history. I just like I went to the Brady game and watched him get retired, and seeing Brady retired is so weird. Like I just like it makes me uncomfortable. I don't know. I hope that I know that Belichick is, first of all, Belichick's been so great to me over the years. There's certain people that I've met in my life that are like pinch me moments, and meeting Bill Belichick and having him talk to me and send me a text after a nice tournament is one of them. And I just love the guy, and I just would do anything. And I know I always think they're going to win. And I think this team is good. And I think he thinks it's good. And I trust Belichick.
It's funny because people, you cover the team, you've heard us, you've heard me, read stuff. And I think people are of a mind that I hate Bill and want him to go because I'm kind of a hard judge. And I bring up all the stuff that I think went sideways. It's going to be on a hot seat. But in the end, I don't want to cover Bill Belichick's resignation. I don't want any of that. I would never revel in that. I want him to break the record, get carried off the field by, Mac Jones or Bailey Zappi or friggin' Ian Book, and then just
Greer or whatever.
Yeah. So it is a weird dichotomy. What do you like for Sunday? Because I'm looking at this game, and I do want to talk a little Ryder Cup, but I'm looking at this game, Keegan. Dallas beat the Giants and they beat the Jets. Both of those teams suck. Yeah. And then they got beat by a team that sucks. Meanwhile, the Patriots were more than competitive, kind of outplayed the Eagles, hung in with Miami, more than hung in, and took care of business in a slop fest against the Jets. The Patriots actually kind of have a better resume. Am I out of my mind?
I mean, I personally, I would have preferred the Cowboys to have beat the Cardinals. I hate playing teams the week after a bad loss. I thought they all played the Eagles and the Dolphins the whole game. Or not the Eagles. The first quarter was insane. Exactly. But I mean, and then especially you see what the Dolphins did to Denver, and they put up 70 points, and that I think they have a chance. I think this is how I feel about the Patriots. And I heard Scott Zolak say this earlier in the year, and it made a lot of sense. He said he feels like they're going to be in every game in the fourth quarter. And it's just going to come down to, like you said earlier, can this team figure out how to make those plays and win those games? Because I think they could beat the Cowboys easily. I mean, I really do. And all of a sudden they beat the Cowboys, and the narrative's gonna switch in the national media. It's like
100%.
Belichick's back, the Patriots are. I mean, it happened with Mac his first season. I remember seeing the power rankings where they had them the best to win the Super Bowl. So I mean,
Forget about that.
yeah. I mean,
I was writing why not us columns.
Yeah, they were. I remember even with Maz's tiers, they had the Patriots in tier 1. I was pumped, but I think they win this game. The whole narrative's going to switch, and then they have a little break in the schedule. Although some of these teams they're better than we thought, but This is a brutal start to the season, and it's such a shame because they could have won both those first 2 games, but who knows?
Yeah, I mean it's weird because I was calling them moral victories and I was getting heckled for it, but at least those games were not disasters, especially the Eagles game. I mean, it was an outright disaster, but then to come out and outplay them for 48 minutes, there's no way you can come off the field and say, wow, we suck. Wow, we're not competitive. They gave me a game plan. You go ahead.
I listened to when you were talking about those moral victories, and I totally agreed. I mean, I felt better about the Patriots' first 2 losses than their win, to be honest. Like the Jets win felt like almost a moral loss. Honestly, it felt different. But I think, I mean, I thought that Eagles game was going to get real ugly, and they did. They hung in there. Mac made some great throws. This is a tough team, and they seem to be in it a little bit more together this season than they did last.
Yeah, they do. And do you like Mac?
I do. I see. And by the way, I was talking about this earlier. I've seen every video, every angle of this Sauce Gardner thing, and I don't see him do anything. Did you see it?
I think he did.
Where he did?
Okay, I'll send it to you so you can see it. There's it's like total Zapruder film, but it's the kind of thing. You played basketball, right?
Yeah.
All right. Sauce Gardner's playing corner. He's 200 feet away. In the 5 seconds preceding, Mac Jones had somebody jam him up under the head. And then he tried to counter that by running into the wrong guy, Mosley. Mosley spikes him, and then he's on his ass. And I think he was gesturing to the ref, and Sauce Gardner came scurrying over to get in his face while he's on the ground and do that bullshit. So by the time Mac stood up and Sauce is still standing there, I get why he would have given him a little poke.
I mean, also, like, guys, can we not go to social media and post figure this out on your own? It's like so pathetic. If he did this and he was pissed, we're gonna see him again in week 17. Like, go ahead and hit him. I don't know, but like to go on to social media and then he deleted it in his Twitter or something. I just find it to be so soft. I don't know. I think Mac has definitely done a few things that he shouldn't have, but like he's not running to social media. He's doing his thing because I know what it's like to get social media that sort of where everyone's piling on, and it sucks. It's not easy. And so I think what Mac's having to deal with the last year and how he's played to start the year with all the zappy, all this stuff. I think he's looking good. I don't know.
I do too. It's funny too, because I think guys become a target by default. So Sauce Gardner wouldn't have been there if he didn't already think the Mac was somebody he wanted to bust ass on.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, he wouldn't do that to Brady or
he's not going to come scurrying up and tower over, Matthew Stafford or somebody.
No.
Just even like to name a garden variety quarterback.
Yeah,
but they look at Mac, he's this guy. So listen, I want to segue a little bit. We met at training camp and you wanted to talk Patriots and I wanted to talk golf. Is it amusing for you? Because like I can talk Patriots with anyone because I don't play for the team.
Mm-hmm.
I don't play football, so we can speak from the same vantage point. But I started telling you about my one-handed putting and the fact I'm trying to keep my head behind the ball. And that does that drive you crazy in a different way? Because you're talking to people as a pro who do the same thing and then say, hey, unbelievable professional golfer who's miles and universes away from me. Here's what I'm doing.
Well, when I get to pick your brain, I've grown up listening to you talk about the Patriots and other sports. When I got a guy that I can tell me some inside Patriot stuff. I'll talk about your one-handed putting, your
So
putt
great.
behind the back putting. I'll do whatever you want, man.
That's so great. We get the Ryder Cup starts tomorrow in Rome. How are you doing with this week? Obviously, a lot of conversation about how deserving you were as a candidate to be a captain's pick, and you weren't. And it's well documented how, quote, super bummed out you were when Zach Johnson called and said, "We're not going with you." How are you doing with it this week? Is there ready to tee off?
Yeah, I mean, I go through stages of sadness, anger, and then sort of a little bit of relief. I don't know. I'm so bummed out about it, but I'm rooting for the team. I went. There was a point in my career where I thought I was going to play in every Ryder Cup, and then it got to the point where I had sort of gotten peace with myself of like, you're not going to play in another Ryder Cup ever again, and that's okay. Like we're going to try it. We're going to work hard and try to get there. But I sort of pushed that to the side. I not so much thinking I would never play in it again, but I sort of stopped worrying about it.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden now I'm back in this position of not only am I got a chance to make the team, but I got a very good chance. And it's everything sort of came back up in my remembering memories and thinking. I say this all the time. If I'm 70 years old and I look back and I haven't won a Ryder Cup, I'm going to be really bummed out. And this might have been my best chance. I don't know. I'm going to work my absolute hardest to play at Bethpage, 20 minutes from where I went to college. But I don't know how that's going to work out. And I'm really bummed out about it, but I had a great year, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to work as hard as I can. And this little things like this can help piss you off and get you working harder and, that sort of thing.
It was obvious in your comments. You said, well, I guess I'm just going to have to automatically qualify from here on out. Apparently. I mean, it wasn't rock kicking tone, but it was like,
yeah,
it's on me.
Yeah. I mean, the reality of it is if you don't make the top six, you're up for a pick. And when you're up for a pick, it's like when I watch figure skating and there's somebody judging it, it's not like, oh yeah, I scored more points than you. You're up to now when you're not on the team, you're up to somebody's decision. And that's my fault. I should have qualified for the team. You know what I mean? So part of me is that tells myself that like, this is sports. Like you got to make the team or you're going to be up for a pick. And you never know how that's going to shake out.
You said afterwards, you've always been an outsider. In saying that, is it because you're kind of New Englander from Vermont, went to school up here, didn't go to an SEC school, et cetera? Is that why you feel that way?
For sure. Yeah. I mean, I grew up in Vermont. I was a good. I mean, I was a good player. I was winning tournaments. I moved to Hopkins, Mass in high school. Was a good player. Didn't get hardly. I mean, I got really one offer to go to college at St. John's, and I played great at St. John's. I won 10 times. Never even acknowledged it for an All-American, and that pissed me off. And then, I came out and I had to play the Hooters tour. I had no sponsors, exemptions. I had to really earn every step of this. And then, I never was in that crowd. I never was able to play these big amateur tournaments. They're across the world. I mean, it's the same as, but I do now. I didn't, my parents were hardworking people and I had the best childhood, but like that was a ridiculous notion to travel the world playing junior golf. And, so I sort of always had a chip on my shoulder, and I wasn't, my first handful of years on tour, I was not out there to make friends. I didn't have any interest in, becoming friends off the golf course. I was there to beat people and make money. That was it. And I was pissed off. I was an animal. I really was. Like I wanted to beat these guys and these, guys that had been beating me or getting more attention, beating me and going to Georgia and blah, blah, blah. And I was having to grind it out. And so I wanted to beat these guys, and I didn't really have any of this. I want to be friends and hang out. And that ultimately has hurt me a little bit. And I regret it, to be honest, because a lot of these guys have lifelong friendships and they're close with some guys on tour. And it's a nice thing to have.
Is Is it So is it active animosity or just, oh yeah, Keegan's a little bit of a different guy. He runs.
No,
in a different circle.
I am not. I'm friends with all those guys, and
Yeah.
there's no bad blood. It's just I'm not. They're 10 years younger than me, most of them.
That's the
and
other thing.
my first handful of years on tour, they weren't out here. When my Ryder Cup teams were Tiger, Phil, Furyk, Zach Johnson, and then this is a whole new generation. I see them out here at the Grove where I play all the time. They're great guys, and I'm friend. Like there's no bad blood, zero.
That's
It's
great.
just we're not best friends. These guys are all like in groomsmen in their weddings. These guys are close, and they're. This is what bummed me out is they're such good guys. They're so fun to be around, and I remember Phil telling that to me how it helped him as he got older to be around the younger generation and I was really looking forward to being in the team room with this younger group and just sort of feeding off them.
And you get along with Phil, right? I would imagine Phil was probably kind of, because of his brashness, because of his early success. And he wasn't really embraceable from 1991 through 2004. People didn't like Phil Mickelson in the early portion of his career. Then he became cuddly, and now they don't like him again. But he was a guy that you had a good relationship with, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. I played 2 Ryder Cups and a President's Cup, and I played every match with Phil. So I think that ultimately sort of hurt me in the end because I didn't have other partners for them to look at.
I got you.
And we were dominant. Like we were tough. I got to imagine when the European side or the international side saw me and Phil match up against them, they were like, okay, this is going to be a tough match because we were tough. But yeah, Phil was great because as a rookie, you gotta be paired up with a veteran guy because you don't. This is it's a totally different sport, this Ryder Cup, and it's so great to have a guy on there that's a veteran and gonna be okay with what's going on.
Am I a dink if I like some of the European players at the high end better than some of the American players at the high end?
Well, they're certainly playing great.
I like them. Like I freaking love Victor Hovland. I love Rahm. I love,
No, they're a very likable group. That's for sure.
Shane
they're
Lowry.
very, very yeah. I see Shane out here all the time. He's the best. They're the best. All of them are the best.
What do you think is going to happen this weekend? Because I love the Ryder Cup. Can I tell you a quick story? 1999. I went all in on covering the Ryder Cup. I was at the Metro West Daily News covering towns like Hopkinton. And
nice. Yeah.
It was at Brookline. So I went to Worcester and did a story on Worcester Country Club, side of the first Ryder Cup. I went to the country club so I covered the 99 Ryder Cup and would drive in every day. And Michael Hawley and I were on the 17th green in the bleachers over it. And, they have those little headphones. You don't really know what's going on. There's no scoreboards and shit. So I'm like, Mike, if he makes this, do they win? You don't really know if you're in the stands. And he made it. And then they went ape. And Michael and I were sitting there in the front with our feet dangling over. You can actually see us. And it was, it was the single 28-3 in that are the best events I've ever covered in my life. I'm getting goosebumps now for being there on the site on Sunday. So I love the Ryder Cup so much. What's going to happen this weekend? And how do you like the final 3 holes?
I was at the 99 Ryder Cup too. I was on the 18th green when he made that. I was on my dad's shoulders. I could see the red shirts running through.
No.
Actually, a cool story I hadn't been back since the Ryder Cup at the U.S. Open, and we were on the 18th green when Leonard made the putt, and then I think it was Montgomery and somebody else came up 18. The matches were over.
Yep.
And they finished out, and everyone ran out on the green. This was before cell phones. I was 12 at the time. 13. I was with my dad. And I really wanted to run out on the green. And I think about this now, like I would never let my son do this, but he said, because no one had cell phones. So, and there's 20,000 people. So I was, Dad, I really want to run out on the green. So he said, all right, there was this crooked tree behind the 18th green. It went like this. It goes, you run out. I'm going to stand by this tree. Meet me right here. So I ran out and I saw a couple of players and it was the coolest moment. I ran back. So then I'm playing my first practice round at the US Open. and I'm walking up 18. I hadn't thought about this, and I looked, and that crooked tree was still there from back in the day when I was there, and it was like such a cool moment that I had come 20 years later. I was now playing this whole U.S. Open, and I had done that in the Ryder Cup. It was just a special time. But I think I'm picking the U.S. to win. I think that these guys, 30 years. I mean, if you're a gambler and you think about if something's happened that many times in a row, it's bound to correct itself. I think that this team is so good, and I'll be rooting for them.
And there's 4 rookies on the other side, I think. So
yeah,
there's a couple of rookies here too. But this was a blast. Did you have fun with this?
Anytime.
Definitely. Don't say that. Don't say that.
Anytime I'm talking to Tom Curran about the Patriots, man, I'll do that every week. I can't wait to come back on. I'm coming back when they beat the Cowboys,
dude.
I'm coming back on.
I gotta let you go. I'm not gonna overextend. So he's like, oh, here's Curran again. Oh, hey, have a great weekend. Thank you so much, Keegan Bradley.
Thanks, brother.